Hello everybody, and I'm delighted you can join us for this webinar. My name is Paul Sternberg. I'm the Associate Dean here at Ravensbourne and the Head of Design Innovation. And I run the Master of Design program. And the Master of Design program, as you'll probably know, has four distinct courses in it. It's a portfolio of four courses, one of which is design management, the other one is service design innovation, then social innovation is another one, and luxury brand management. And I'll explain how they all work together and how they all work as distinct entities in a minute. But what I'd like to do in this webinar is just to talk you through some of the almost philosophical dimensions of the course and how the course lends itself to new opportunities in the world of work, in the world of the creative industries, but also in the world of mainstream business as well. And to talk through some of the things that the students have ended up doing. So you really have a flavor of what the course is about. This presentation will be about 20 minutes or so, and hopefully there'll be some questions which I can respond to. But a little bit of background about myself. My background's actually in broadcasting, so I was the commissioning editor for education and learning at Channel 4 at a very interesting time when Channel 4 was moving from being a one-dimensional broadcaster into being a kind of multimedia company. And the big question is, what did this mean for education? What did this mean for commissioning education outputs and specialized programs? So I was responsible for redesigning the concept of learning and education for Channel 4, which was a public service broadcaster. I've also worked in the area of corporate social responsibility. So I was the Director of Communications and Public Policy at Business in the Community, working very closely with government and with the Prince of Wales, who was a great champion of corporate social responsibility. So my understanding of both the business world and also education and broadcasting communications is very important to how the MDes has been designed. Let me just talk you through a little bit about the MDes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by talking about design thinking. Because at the heart of the MDes is this idea of design thinking, and design thinking can mean anything to anybody. So we really try and kind of focus and be very specific about what we mean by design thinking, because what we do in the MDes is we take design thinking in its different facets, which I'm going to talk you through in a minute, and we apply it to organizational development, organizational change, to services and how we can diversify and develop services, to social innovation, how we can address some of the big societal and environmental problems and issues of today, and also to luxury being kind of the epitome, if you like, of interesting and innovative business models. In luxury, you find very, very interesting the emergence of new business models led by creative people, led by an idea of tradition meeting innovation, and led by the need to kind of really connect with markets in very, very distinct ways. So there's a lot of learning that can be done between all four courses. But let's talk about design thinking for a minute. A traditional way of understanding design thinking, I'm just going to talk you through some of these charts and everything. A traditional way of thinking about design thinking is that it's a way of thinking, it's a way of opening up the mind to new ideas. But rather than just being completely open and being slightly anarchic, if you like, allowing all the different ideas to come to you, as you find a lot in a kind of creative mindset, you also need to narrow those ideas down. And this double diamond approach, which comes from the UK's Design Council, is an example of how design thinking starts off with kind of divergent thinking, so you think outside the box, you think in very, very creative ways without any parameters, and then how you have to narrow that down into convergent thinking. So you define what the issue is, and you bring things together. And that idea of divergence and convergence, the idea of openness and then focusing it down, is generally speaking a very kind of creative way of approaching things. And that creative intelligence is applied to design thinking. It underpins design thinking, this idea of creative intelligence. This, and I won't go through the history now, but this has now been refined into different kind of a schema, if you like, and different kind of methodologies. And one is IDEO. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with IDEO, based in San Francisco, but now with offices throughout the world. They were the first company that designed the mouse for the Apple computers, a product design company now turning into service design and particularly social innovation. And their director and founder, Tim Brown, says, well, actually, design thinking is really a problem-solving methodology. And what you have to do is you have to gather all the information, gather everything you can, like a huge recipe of ingredients. Then you need to generate ideas from this information. Then you need to make something. You know, you always need to make something. It's not just about being in your attic, you know, with brilliant ideas. You need to do something. And then you have to share it. You have to share it. You have to disseminate it. So IDEO have this methodology, which is very, very interesting. Another approach, which is an extension of that, is actually from the D school. And the D school in Stanford, the design school, very, very influenced by IDEO, vice versa, and everything. And there you have these two incredible brothers, both of which have a connection with IDEO, David and Tom Kelly, who actually say, well, actually at the heart of design thinking is this idea of empathy. You have to be able to empathize with people. You have to be able to empathize with the markets you're trying to target. You have to be able to have that deep sense of connection with whoever you're trying to design for and with. And in order to define products and to define new organizational solutions and to define services, you need to have this empathy. And that will allow you then to ideate, you know, to undergo a process of ideation where you develop ideas. Then you need to prototype those ideas, and then you need to test them in a market. So that's the kind of D school way of thinking. However, the reality is this. This is the reality. That as much as you'd want to have schemes and methods and methodologies and tools and everything, the process of design is confusing. It takes you through all kinds of different levels. It means you're working with different peoples at different stages. Very, very rarely will you as designers ever have the opportunity to start from a blank sheet of paper. You'll always have to start from something which is already in existence. So how do you make sense of that? And I think a very important kind of takeaway from today's talk is that what we do in the MDes and Ravensbourne is we really do take a reality check. We understand how does it work in practice. You're a design professional, you're a design practitioner. What does that mean working in the world of work? What does that mean working with services, working with businesses and organizations? How do you influence and shape ideas? Using these methodologies and various tools, which we go throughout, we look at throughout the year, but also understanding the various obstacles, the barriers that you're going to come across in your practice as professionals. So let's just recap for a minute what we mean by design thinking, because this is what we're trying to do in the course. You know, we're taking these things and we're applying it to real live problems, and a key part of the course is the way we engage with businesses and we develop real live briefs, working in a real world way. So in summary, we've got three, I'd say 6 things which really define design thinking. We explore these and see how they relate to the real world. The first one is problem solving. You know, the problem solving methodologies, the reframing of problems, trying to see things through a new light and everything. What's often called abductive reasoning, which is that basically it's a kind of complicated way of saying quite a simple thing, which is asking the what if question. You know, what if we did it this way? What if we approached it that way? What could that look like? So it's that idea of taking a hypothesis, taking a vision for something that could possibly work, and applying a certain kind of reasoning to that. The second element of design thinking is visualization. Visualization is absolutely crucial. Visualization is where design comes from, really. The idea that you don't, you're not talking about something, you're showing something. The idea that you can give shape and form to solutions, and visualization is very important. The third one is prototyping. The idea that you can always and must always test things beforehand. In this sense, there's a great expression about failure. You know, fail, fail, and fail again is the kind of you know, the ethos in a way of a design thinker. Because the more you can fail and the more you can test and prototype things, the more effective it is. The fourth area, which is very important, and I'm going to talk about in a minute, is the idea of user-centered, the user-centered idea of design, something which is human-centered and empathetic. How do we develop things which put human beings at the heart of a service or of an organization or of a business or of a brand, rather than a system or a process or some kind of mechanism? Very, very important. And it's what gives designers their kind of, in a way, their ethical premium. And then the fifth one is synthesizing and integrating. How can we take diverse and very dispersed and fragmented ideas and bring them together? How can we take something which has no relevance whatsoever or connection and show that it does have a relevance and a connection? How can we see the dots and join those in ways that other people can't do? And finally, it's the collaboration and participation. It's the idea that a design thinker has to get up close and personal to the projects, to the people that they are working with. And this idea of collaborating, participating, bringing people in is absolutely crucial to design thinking. So this is a kind of just a Donald Norman. Some of you may have come across him as the Design of Everyday Things, where he talks about human-centered design. And he talks about human-centered design from the point of view of the end user. And the end user, I've always found, is quite a limited way of understanding human-centered design. It kind of slightly detaches what we're doing as a designer. So a key part of the course, and I would say it really goes to the essence of the course, is really understanding people from an emotional, a psychological, and a social point of view. Because if you understand where people are, what motivates them, what drives them, what inspires them, then that's the basis for designing new services, designing new organizational solutions, and addressing big social issues, as well as looking at the kinds of brands, the forms of communications that we want to develop. So what we do is we really look at the multi-dimensional aspect of people, from the extrinsic factors which motivate people, you know, the need for financial, material, physical things, and designers have traditionally worked in that area, through to the intrinsic aspects of what people need and they aspire to. The idea of family, of community, their social, their psychological, their emotional dimensions. And we understand that when we're working as designers, when we're working on live briefs, we have to have a clear understanding and a clear insight around these two aspects of a human-centered approach to design. We also look at mindsets, mindsets and values, approaches, attributes, competencies, how they work, whether they're working in an organization or whether they're working with users engaged in kind of services, or whether we're looking at big societal changes. So we look a lot about the idea of fixed mindsets and how do we engage fixed mindsets, how can we change fixed mindsets through to growth mindsets. How can we actually bring people with a growth mindset, a desire to make changes on board, make them into early adopters, into champions, and us as designers create communities of interest around a specific issue or a specific challenge. And we base this on evidence, you know, so this is not just kind of fluffy stuff, but it's actually based on evidence, and it's based on evidence which is coming from the world of neuroscience, the world of behavioral science, the world of psychology, the world of developmental thinking, which is really what is at the heart of a human being, a community, a group of people that allows them to flourish that allows them to play to their strengths, that allows them to become the protagonists in a change program. And how, as we as designers, how can we facilitate that and bring that about? And so this is just an example of what we do. Every one of these elements, from the giving to relating to acceptance and meaning, is all evidence-based. It's all been based on a huge amount of work that social scientists and psychologists have been carrying out for at least 30 years in this area. And we try and apply that and harness the learning and the insights around well-being to the portfolio, if you like, the toolkit of the designer. And that's a very important part of the course. This is just an example of a project, a live project we did. Many of you will know that Ravensbourne is based in the North Greenwich Peninsula. The North Greenwich Peninsula is right at the heart of London. It's been regenerated over the past almost 20 years. And it's a smart city. It's a smart city. It's been designated as a smart city where technology and the Internet of Things are all coming together to really reshape the way that citizens, the way that communities and individuals, businesses are working with this area. So it's a showcase for how smart cities can develop. So one of the live projects that we've undertaken was with the city council, the borough council, and Digital Greenwich, and it was looking at the way in which smart city developments can be linked to public health networks in Greenwich. Because traditionally, when you think about smart cities, it's all about technology. And what we were saying was actually there's a wider issue to this. Greenwich, interestingly enough, has a high level, and very sadly, has a high level of social fragmentation and social isolation. It also has a very, very high level of mental health issues amongst young people in Greenwich. So we wanted to see, working with a group of 12 students, we wanted to see how we can link these smart city developments to the public health networks in Greenwich. And we identified there was a real lack of knowledge exchange. There was a lack of communication between these two worlds. So how could we identify and support the role of smart city development and align that to health developments? And we did all kinds of very interesting projects. We prototyped things, we engaged people, we held seminars and workshops. And at the heart of this was a user-centered, human-centered design approach, which we were testing and disseminating amongst politicians, businesses, decision makers. Just to give you a very, very quick overview, this was based on design principles. I'm not going to go through these now, but here you have an example of some of the design principles that we applied. At the heart of this project was co-creation. You know, that actually the more that people are involved in the creation of new services, the more effective, sustainable, and enduring those services are. And this is the kind of landscape. Again, you can look at this in your own time. But something that we used a lot was storytelling and transmedia storytelling, prototyping, testing things, working with health professionals, linking them to community networks, working with public bodies and linking them to technology. And this was used, as you would have been familiar with the double diamond. We used this double diamond approach. So there was a real methodology of taking people through the journey, using human-centered methods, generating kind of emotional user journeys by capturing what people really were going through in terms of struggling with mental health and well-being issues, then facilitating workshops and then capturing ideas and then really campaigning for those ideas. This was all led by students on the MDes program. And what this was the schema, if you like, we used. Very, very simple. The question was, if we were to co-create services in Greenwich which contributed towards young people's well-being, then what would this look like? This is an abductive question. It's about what if. It's a what if. So there was a discovery phase, as you can see there, the beginning, the bottom of the rocket. Then we generated ideas, we brought all those ideas together, and then we looked at what kind of services, what kind of new businesses, what types of organizations are needed to put this into practice. So that is an example of the project. Now what I'd like to do is to show a quick video of actually one of the workshops that we've been doing, and then I'll finish with an animated version of this project in particular, just one project that we've been doing.
I'm really excited about the workshop today. I think it's going to be a great mixture of people who are involved in the systems that work around food and well-being and safety within the Greenwich Peninsula. I think it's really important that we have all of the different representatives coming together so they can understand what each of their organisations can do differently to help us to take Greenwich to a new place in the future.
Well, for me, it was not only about today, but all about how we came up with this happening today, how the meetings were held, how we worked together as a team, how the roles were allocated, and especially how we managed all the people that we gathered here today.
This workshop is absolutely integral to the whole Master of Design and Innovation program. What we've been trying to do with the Master of Design and Innovation program is to really look at how we can move services and organizations and some of the big issues facing society today from one set of solutions to another set of solutions based on a more inclusive, based on a more sustainable approach.
I think the most important thing is this broadening of scope. So with transition design, it's broader in terms of an understanding of the wider systems that design has an influence on or plays a part in. A broadening of scope in timescales, in terms of thinking about much longer timescales than maybe we're used to with design. There's also a broadening of scope with what kind of tools and ideas and frameworks and theories that we bring into the design process. So in every sense, it's a broadening.
Such a great workshop. I really enjoyed seeing people's reactions to the newspaper articles, which were fantastically written by Adama. I really enjoyed hearing people's different stories about the trends that they think are impacting their lives at the moment. And I really think that we've got a good group together who are invested in making sure that the future of Greenwich is a good one.
So that I just wanted to show you that because that's an example of a project we did, a workshop that we did last year, and it was very interesting. This is the illustration actually from that project that you would have seen Mike Smith, who's the tutor here in animation, doing. But I think it gives you an idea of the range of projects. We do very interesting live projects. So we've just completed a project with Ikea, and it was actually in relationship to smart technology and to luxury. It's looking at Ikea, the potential for Ikea to develop a luxury kind of area, space, and also how it uses technology in the consumer experience. We've also done a project this year with the Open Data Institute, which was set up by Tim Berners-Lee, on physical activity and ways in which we can encourage using technology, encourage people and using data to become more actively physically and in terms of preventative health. We work with big brands, we work with big companies like Barclays and IBM. And so each year the projects are different, but equally they're just as interesting. We work with government bodies and with NGOs. And I think, as you'll have seen possibly in the video, There's a very, very diverse and very interesting student body who do the MDes. And I would say maybe 50% of the students who come onto the MBA have a design background. They're either architects or product designers or interior designers, fashion designers, graphic designers, and 50% have a business background. And that both groups are trying to understand how each other work. The designers want to embrace a more business-oriented and strategic approach to their practice and to their work, and often trying to repurpose their skills. And the people with business backgrounds are looking to understand the kind of creative intelligence that you can draw out from the design world and design thinking. So this rich mix of people working together for a year is incredibly inspirational. It's a great privilege for me, actually. It really is to be able to work with so many interesting people and people who go on to do very interesting things. I think the MDes, I'm really glad to say, is a real springboard into something interesting. You know, it appears to accelerate people's careers and opens up opportunities and doors. Because a lot of professionals do the course. A lot of people in their late 20s, early 30s will join the course. The course, at the heart of the course, it's learning through and learning from experience. I mean, that's really at the heart of the course. It's how do you make sense of experience and learn from it, but also how do you apply a learning approach to your experience. And a question that's just come through is how can you expand more? How can you tell us more about the interdisciplinary nature of the course? And yeah, it's at its heart, design thinking is interdisciplinary. I mean, it doesn't fit into any one silo or any one sector. It works across the silos and works across the sectors. And the MDes really embraces this very interdisciplinary approach. You know, we've done a project recently on exchange mechanisms, how people exchange, you know, currency, money is an exchange mechanism. The Bitcoin is another exchange mechanism. How can organizations and communities develop their own platforms for exchange mechanisms? That drew so much on the world of economics and economic thinking and economic modeling. You know, we do work on the well-being work we do, draws on psychology. We've done a lot of work recently on ethnographic, you know, getting up close and understanding communities, which draws a lot on anthropology. And of course, technology is the big disruptor in this, you know, understanding where technology goes. So it's very, very transdisciplinary in its nature. Now, I think that there might be some more questions that are coming this way. I'm expected to have our own topic for our research. Yes, I mean, the question is, are we expected to have our own topic for our research, or can we develop this as we study the course? It depends. There's a huge amount of guidance for you, because at the end of the course, you're expected to produce a 15,000-word dissertation. This dissertation is very, very important, particularly as it acts as a kind of calling card in a way into the world of work and employment opportunities, or whatever you're doing, even if you're setting up on your own. So it's a very important area of specialism. Some people come to the course with a very clear area that they want to specialize in. And rarely, I have to say, do they stay in that area all throughout the course. They will explore other things. But they might come back to that at the very end of the course in their dissertation. So some people have very clear ideas of what they want to study and what they want to get out of the course. Other people less so. But working together and working, you know, on the various assignments and the challenges allows you to test your own areas of interest. So this is another question. How I'll be studying for full-time studies. How many days do I need to be at the university? Very good. And also part-time studies. We have 2 full days of teaching, and that's usually on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and it's in the afternoon, starts at 4 o'clock. But one has to allow for other days, particularly when you're working on collaborative live briefs. So I always say 3 days is very, very important to commit to 3 days working, plus 1 day of reading and catching up on your work, doing some research, your own research. So in that respect, if you're doing it full-time, see it as a full-time job, basically. If you're doing it part-time, it would be half that. So instead of 1 year, it's 2 years. And the courses are either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and we can tell you about that shortly. And I think that's all the questions. I can see that we've already answered. I've already answered that question. So I'm just looking at the questions now. Somebody's asked if I can give you the course structure for the term. There are 3 terms. There are 3 terms, and the course is made up of 7 units, which means 7 different courses. So the first course is about contextual design. We look at research methodologies, writing research papers, and things like that. We also look at things like coaching, mentoring, thinking environments. How do we create those thinking environments? Then the next, it's in the same term. We do a live project, and so what happens? You start off all together. The MDes subjects work together at the very beginning, and then they go off. And so you go off with your individual tutors. So luxury brand will have their tutors, service design students, their tutors, social innovation and design management, their tutors. And you usually work on a live project, some kind of live project. And then you come back for the 3rd unit and you work together, and then you go away for the 4th unit and work on your individual areas. And so that's how it works. But there are 7 units, which means 7 assignments. And the assignments are made up of individual research, so usually about 3,000 words or 4,000 words, depending on the unit, and group work as well, so group presentations. And they're assessed on both the group presentations and the group collaborative work, like putting on that workshop that we've seen, and also on the individual pieces of usually reflective research, reflective practice research. Somebody's asked if I can tell them more about the MDes alumni. I mean, yes, on the whole, that everybody goes on within about 3 months, has developed their career, has gone on to something very interesting. So we have students in the UK who now are working in the Cabinet Office, the government's Cabinet Office, on designing of services, government services. We have a student in IBM, so some of the big companies like IBM and Barclays Bank. We have students who go on to work in design consultancy, so Fjord is one, Flux is another, and they're very interesting how they develop within those companies, and they certainly have the right background to work in those kinds of companies. 1 or 2 students also set up on their own. So they approach the course from a very kind of learning about innovation and learning about how they can set up an enterprise, a venture based around innovation. And we do a whole unit around business and innovation. What does business mean, particularly if you've got an early stage startup idea? What do you do? How do you get it to that point of you know, a proof of concept, if you like, where you could take it to an investor, or you could get funding, or you know, test it within a market. So they go on to interesting things, but quite diverse, but partly because of the diverse nature of the course and of the student body as well. So I think that's all the questions. And if you have anything in the future, please let me know. And I hope you found this explanation, journey through interesting and helpful. So many thanks, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in September. All right, bye.